Welcome to Shadow Psychology Coded, where we venture into territories of the human psyche that conventional wisdom dares not explore. Today, we begin our descent into Nietzsche's most dangerous and transformative teachings about attraction, not the superficial attraction of social games and dating strategies, but the fundamental magnetic pull that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary, the sovereign from the slave, the creators from the created. For too long, you've been fed lies about attraction, that it's about being nice, compliant, agreeable, that it's about following rules and seeking approval. These deceptions have kept you weak, dependent, and perpetually seeking validation from external sources. Nietzsche's forbidden laws of attraction reveal a terrifying truth. Genuine attraction has nothing to do with pleasing others and everything to do with the ruthless cultivation of your own power. What we discuss here will challenge everything you've been taught about relationships, connection, and human dynamics. This isn't about manipulation or games. It's about understanding the fundamental nature of reality and your place within it. The first two laws we explore today form the bedrock of this understanding. They are the foundation upon which all other attraction is built. Prepare to have your worldview shattered and rebuilt from the ground up. Law 1. Attraction is the inevitable consequence of power, not the goal of manipulation. The single greatest misunderstanding about attraction is that it's something you can manufacture through techniques, scripts, or strategies. This is the desperate fantasy of the weak, the belief that by learning the right words or actions, they can trick others into feeling drawn to them. Nietzsche's first forbidden law destroys this fantasy completely. Attraction is not something you create in others. It's the natural radiation of your own internal state of power. When you possess genuine power, not power over others, but power over yourself, your emotions, your destiny, you become magnetic in ways that cannot be faked or manufactured. This law demands a complete paradigm shift. Stop focusing on how to make others want you, and start focusing on how to become someone so powerful that wanting becomes inevitable. The modern dating industry thrives on selling you manipulation techniques because it's easier to teach someone a few psychological tricks than it is to guide them through the painful, demanding process of genuine self-transformation. But these tricks are temporary solutions that ultimately reinforce your weakness. Every time you use a line, a technique, or a strategy to attract someone, you're implicitly admitting your own inadequacy. You're saying, "I'm not enough as I am, so I need to pretend to be something I'm not." This desperate energy is detectable at a primal level, and it repels exactly what you seek to attract. The path of true attraction begins with what Nietzsche called the will to power, not in the crude sense of dominating others, but as the fundamental drive to expand, overcome, and master yourself. When you channel this will inward, when you dedicate yourself to becoming the most powerful version of yourself possible, something remarkable happens. You stop caring about whether others are attracted to you. This isn't apathy. It's the profound security that comes from knowing your worth isn't dependent on external validation. And this very indifference becomes intensely attractive because it signals a person of genuine substance, someone who isn't desperate for approval, someone who stands firmly in their own value. The practice of this law begins with a ruthless audit of your motivations. In every interaction, ask yourself, am I acting from a place of genuine self-expression, or am I performing for approval? Am I speaking my truth because it's my truth, or because I think it will make me likable? Am I pursuing my goals because they're meaningful to me, or because I believe they'll make me more attractive to others? This constant self-inquiry gradually purges you of performative behavior and aligns you with authentic power. The transformation occurs slowly but profoundly. You'll notice yourself becoming more direct, more honest, less concerned with how you're perceived. You'll find yourself naturally setting boundaries, not as a strategy, but because you genuinely value your time and energy. You'll pursue your passions with greater intensity, not to impress anyone, but because they're essential to who you are. And as this transformation deepens, you'll discover that attraction begins to flow toward you effortlessly, not because you're trying to attract, but because you've become inherently attractive. This is the great paradox of attraction. The less you need it, the more you receive it. The more you focus on building genuine power within yourself, the more magnetic you become. This law is forbidden because it creates individuals who cannot be manipulated through their desire for approval. They become self-validating, self-directed, and ultimately unstoppable in their pursuit of excellence. Law 2. Suffering is the forge of charisma, not the enemy of happiness. Modern culture has sold you a dangerous lie that suffering is something to be avoided, medicated, or escaped at all costs. You're taught to seek comfort, safety, and pleasant experiences, and to view pain as a sign that something has gone wrong. This avoidance of suffering has created generations of soft, fragile, uninteresting people who break under the slightest pressure. Nietzsche's second forbidden law turns this cowardly logic upside down. Suffering is not your enemy. It's the most potent fuel for developing the kind of deep, compelling charisma that cannot be manufactured or faked. The most magnetic, compelling people you've ever encountered weren't born that way. They were forged in the fires of significant suffering. Their depth, their resilience, their wisdom, their ability to remain calm in chaos, these are all gifts that suffering bestowed upon them. This law commands you to stop running from pain and start embracing it as your most demanding teacher. The practice begins with what Nietzsche called amor fati, the love of one's fate. This isn't passive resignation, but active, enthusiastic embrace of everything life brings you, especially the difficult parts. When suffering arrives, whether through failure, rejection, loss, or hardship, your trained response should be to lean into it, to examine it, to extract every lesson it contains. Ask yourself, what is this pain trying to teach me? What weakness is it revealing? What strength must I develop to overcome it? This mental reframing transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a student of reality. Every moment of suffering becomes a training ground for building charisma. The pain of discipline forges willpower. The agony of failure builds resilience. The heartache of betrayal teaches discernment. The discomfort of speaking truth develops courage. The loneliness of standing alone cultivates self-reliance. These are the building blocks of genuine charisma, not the superficial charm of social skills, but the deep magnetic presence that comes from having been tested by life and emerged stronger. Most people waste their suffering. They complain about it, numb it, distract themselves from it, or use it as an excuse for mediocrity. The sovereign individual treats suffering as raw material for self-creation. They understand that the depth of their character is directly proportional to the depth of suffering they've successfully integrated. This is why comfortable, easy lives produce shallow, uninteresting people. They've never been forced to develop depth. The implementation of this law requires developing what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but a state of being undisturbed by external events. This isn't about suppressing emotion, but about developing the psychological strength to experience suffering without being destroyed by it. When pain arrives, instead of reacting with panic or avoidance, you learn to sit with it, to observe it, to allow it to transform you. This practice gradually builds what can only be described as psychological anti-fragility, the ability to not just withstand stress, but to grow stronger from it. The charismatic individual isn't someone who never suffers. They're someone who has developed such a profound relationship with suffering that it no longer controls them. They carry their scars not as wounds, but as evidence of their strength. This creates an aura of unshakable confidence that draws others toward them, because on some primal level, everyone recognizes and gravitates toward genuine strength. This law is forbidden because it creates individuals who cannot be broken by hardship. They become more powerful with each challenge they face. In a world that wants you soft and dependent, the ability to transform suffering into strength is the ultimate rebellion. We now venture deeper into Nietzsche's forbidden territory, moving beyond foundational principles into the active architecture of your sovereign presence. The first two laws established that attraction flows from genuine power and that suffering forges charismatic depth. Now we confront the mechanisms through which this power manifests, the psychological structures that determine whether you project the desperate energy of neediness or the magnetic presence of self-contained power. Most people attempt to manufacture presence through external means, through status symbols, perfected personas, or social strategies. These are the desperate manipulations of those who lack genuine substance. Nietzsche's next two laws reveal that authentic presence cannot be manufactured. It can only emanate from specific internal conditions that most people lack the courage to cultivate. What follows will challenge your deepest assumptions about social dynamics and force you to confront the ways you've been compromising your power to gain superficial acceptance. This is where we move from theory to embodiment, from understanding to being. Law 3. Your value is non-negotiable, the art of uncompromising self-worth. The third forbidden law strikes at the heart of neediness. Your sense of worth must become completely independent of external validation. Most people operate from what psychologists call contingent self-esteem. Their sense of value rises and falls with approval, success, attention, and social validation. This creates desperate, unattractive energy that others detect immediately. You become a mirror, reflecting whatever you believe others want to see. And in doing so, you sacrifice the very authenticity that makes you compelling. Nietzsche's solution is radical. Your worth must become non-negotiable, absolute, and self-determined. This doesn't mean arrogant self-inflation. It means recognizing that your value as a conscious being is inherent and cannot be increased or decreased by external opinions or outcomes. The practice begins with what I call the sovereignty declaration, a conscious daily reaffirmation that your worth is not up for discussion. Every morning, you must look in the mirror and declare, "My value is not determined by who approves of me, what I achieve, or how I'm perceived. My worth is inherent, and I will not negotiate it." This seems simple, but its implications are profound. When you truly internalize this, your entire social dynamic shifts. You stop seeking approval and start expressing truth. You stop monitoring reactions and start acting from conviction. You stop fearing rejection and start valuing authenticity. The implementation requires ruthless self-honesty about where you've been outsourcing your worth. Do you feel more valuable when attractive people show interest? Do you feel diminished when criticized? Do you base your self-assessment on career achievements or social status? These are all forms of psychological slavery. The path to freedom involves systematically dismantling these external dependencies. Start with small acts of worth assertion. Express unpopular opinions, set boundaries that might disappoint others, pursue goals that others don't understand. Each time you choose self-respect over social approval, you strengthen your sovereign foundation. The transformation occurs gradually. Initially, you'll feel anxiety when you stop performing for approval. This anxiety is the death throes of your dependent self. With persistence, it gives way to profound peace, the peace that comes from no longer being controlled by external validation. This peace becomes intensely attractive because it's so rare. Most people are constantly monitoring social feedback and adjusting their behavior accordingly. When they encounter someone who genuinely doesn't need their approval, they're simultaneously threatened and magnetically drawn. This creates the foundation for genuine attraction rather than manipulative games. The non-negotiable self is terrifying to the herd mentality because it cannot be controlled through social pressure. This is why this law remains forbidden. It creates individuals who are immune to manipulation through their need for belonging. They become social atoms, complete in themselves, who engage with others from choice rather than necessity. This isn't about becoming antisocial. It's about transforming your social interactions from needs-based transactions to want-based connections. The difference is everything. Needs are desperate and wants are powerful. Needs compromise, wants enhance. Needs seek validation, wants express preference. When you operate from non-negotiable self-worth, every interaction becomes an expression of your sovereignty rather than a search for validation. This is the essence of attractive presence. Law 4. Presence demands complete ownership, the end of excuses and justification. The fourth law addresses perhaps the most common destroyer of presence, the failure to take complete ownership of your existence. Most people live in what Nietzsche called the spirit of gravity, weighed down by excuses, justifications, blame, and victim mentality. They explain why they can't, why they haven't, why it's not their fault. This energy of non-ownership is immediately detectable and intensely unattractive. It signals weakness, avoidance, and fundamental unreliability. The sovereign individual operates from the opposite principle, complete and total ownership of everything in their life, their choices, their circumstances, their reactions, their outcomes. This begins with the elimination of what I call the language of delegation. Listen to how most people speak. I had to, I couldn't because they made me feel. This language implicitly transfers agency away from the self. The sovereign individual speaks differently. I chose to. I decided not to. I allowed myself to feel. This linguistic shift represents a profound psychological transformation from passive object to active subject. The practice of complete ownership involves several challenging components. First, you must take ownership of your past. Every decision, every action, every consequence. You chose them all, either through action or inaction. There are no victims, only volunteers. This doesn't mean you're to blame for everything that happened to you, but you are responsible for how you responded and what you made it mean. Second, you must take ownership of your present. Your current circumstances are the direct result of your past choices. If you're not where you want to be, you must acknowledge that your previous decisions led you here. This eliminates the victim mentality that destroys presence. Third, you must take ownership of your future. Your destiny is not something that happens to you. It's something you create through present choices. This recognition installs a powerful forward momentum that others find compelling. The implementation requires what I call the ownership audit. For 1 week, carry a notebook and record every time you catch yourself making excuses, blaming others, or justifying limitations. The patterns will shock you. Most people are unaware of how frequently they delegate agency. With awareness comes the ability to choose differently. Each time you notice the impulse to blame or justify, pause and reframe. How did I contribute to this situation? What choice did I make that led here? What different choice can I make now? This practice gradually rewires your brain from passive to active orientation. The attractive power of complete ownership is immense. When you meet someone who never makes excuses, never blames others, and takes full responsibility for their life, you instinctively trust and respect them. This isn't about perfection, it's about integrity. The sovereign individual makes mistakes like everyone else, but they own them completely. They don't hide failures, they learn from them. They don't blame circumstances, they transform them. This creates what psychologists call agency detection. Others instinctively recognize you as someone who makes things happen rather than someone things happen to. This detection triggers deep attraction because agency is evolutionarily linked to survival and success. The final component of this law is what Nietzsche called the love of fate, not just accepting your life, but loving it exactly as it is because it's yours. Every scar, every mistake, every imperfect part, you embrace it all as essential to your unique journey. This complete self-acceptance eliminates the need for pretense or image management. You become comfortable in your own skin, flaws, and all. This comfort is contagious. Others feel at ease around you because you're not performing or pretending. This authentic presence becomes your most attractive quality. This law is forbidden because it creates individuals who cannot be manipulated through guilt, blame, or victim mentality. They stand as self-contained units of will who transform reality through sheer force of ownership. In a culture that encourages passivity and complaint, complete ownership is the ultimate rebellion. We now arrive at the practical application of Nietzsche's forbidden laws, the realm where internal transformation meets external manifestation. The previous laws established the foundation of sovereign power and authentic presence. Now we confront the actual mechanics of magnetic interaction, how power flows between individuals, how boundaries create attraction, and how to navigate the psychological currents that most people neither understand nor control. This is where philosophy becomes practice, where self-mastery translates into social mastery. Most relationship advice focuses on superficial techniques, what to say, how to act, when to call. These are mere symptoms of deeper psychological dynamics. Nietzsche's laws operate at the fundamental level of human psychology, addressing the core principles that govern all magnetic interaction. What follows will revolutionize your understanding of social dynamics and provide the practical tools to transform every interaction into an expression of your sovereignty. Law 5. Boundaries are magnetic. The power of psychological containment. The fifth forbidden law reveals one of the most counterintuitive truths about human attraction. What you exclude determines your attractiveness more than what you include. Most people operate from what psychologists call permeable boundaries. They allow others' emotions, demands, and expectations to penetrate their psychological space. This creates weak, diluted presence that others instinctively disrespect. The sovereign individual understands that strong, clearly defined boundaries create magnetic attraction because they signal self-respect, self-knowledge, and psychological integrity. Nietzsche recognized that the will to power manifests most profoundly as the ability to say no, to reject what doesn't serve you, to exclude what diminishes you, to refuse what compromises your integrity. This practice begins with what I call boundary architecture, the conscious design and maintenance of your psychological territory. Your boundaries define what you will and won't accept in how others treat you, what energy you allow into your space, and what behavior you reward with your attention. Most people have vague, inconsistent boundaries that shift based on who they're interacting with or what they want from them. This inconsistency signals weakness and creates confusion. The sovereign individual maintains consistent boundaries regardless of circumstances or desired outcomes. The implementation requires developing what therapists call boundary awareness, the ability to detect in real time when your boundaries are being tested or violated. This awareness comes from paying attention to physical sensations, that tightness in your stomach when someone disrespects you, that tension in your shoulders when you're compromising your values, that feeling of resentment when you've allowed too much. These bodily signals are your boundary detection system. Most people ignore them or rationalize them away. The sovereign individual honors them immediately. The practice involves what I call the boundary response protocol. When you detect a boundary violation, you respond immediately, calmly, and firmly. Not with anger or emotion, but with simple, direct communication. That doesn't work for me. I'm not comfortable with that. I need you to stop. This immediate response trains others how to treat you and, more importantly, trains you to respect yourself. The magnetic effect of strong boundaries is profound. Initially, some people will react negatively. They're accustomed to you being compliant. But beneath their surface resistance, they develop deep respect. Strong boundaries communicate self-value so effectively that they eliminate the need for constant self-promotion or justification. Others instinctively recognize that you cannot be manipulated, used, or taken for granted. This recognition triggers attraction because it signals rare psychological strength. The most attractive boundaries are often nonverbal. The way you carry yourself, how you maintain personal space, your comfort with silence, your refusal to engage in certain conversations. These subtle signals communicate more than words ever could. The advanced practice involves what I call selective vulnerability, the ability to be open and authentic within the container of strong boundaries. This is the difference between being walled off and being sovereign. Walled-off people are defensive. Sovereign people are discerning. They choose when, how, and with whom to be vulnerable. And this choice itself becomes intensely attractive. This law is forbidden because it creates individuals who cannot be manipulated through social pressure or emotional coercion. They become psychological fortresses that others can visit but never conquer. Law 6. Tension creates attraction. The mastery of psychological currents. The sixth law confronts perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of human interaction, the role of tension in creating attraction. Modern relationship advice often focuses on creating comfort, rapport, and similarity. While these have their place, Nietzsche understood that profound attraction lives in the creative tension between opposing forces, the push and pull of psychological currents that most people try to eliminate. The sovereign individual doesn't avoid tension, they master it. They understand that just as electricity requires potential difference to flow, human connection requires psychological tension to spark. This begins with understanding the difference between toxic tension and creative tension. Toxic tension arises from neediness, manipulation, or unresolved conflict. Creative tension arises from the natural polarity between sovereign individuals, the space where differences meet without collapsing into sameness. Most people, fearing conflict, rush to eliminate all tension through agreement, compliance, or avoidance. This creates flat, uninteresting interactions that generate no spark. The practice of creative tension involves what I call polarity management, the ability to maintain psychological difference without creating hostility. This manifests in several ways: maintaining your center when others challenge you, holding your perspective when others disagree, staying grounded when emotions run high. This ability to remain separate yet connected creates the psychological space where attraction flourishes. The implementation requires developing comfort with social discomfort. Most people panic at the first sign of social friction and rush to smooth things over. The sovereign individual understands that some discomfort is necessary for genuine connection. They allow silence to sit. They don't rush to fill conversational gaps. They tolerate disagreement without needing to resolve it immediately. This comfort with discomfort signals profound psychological security. Others sense that you're not easily shaken, that you can handle intensity, that you don't need constant validation. This perception alone creates attraction. The advanced practice involves what I call intentional tension, consciously creating and managing psychological currents to deepen connection. This isn't about manipulation, it's about understanding human psychology enough to work with its natural laws. Examples include the tension of delayed gratification, not immediately responding to messages, the tension of mystery, not revealing everything at once, the tension of challenge, politely questioning others' assumptions. When handled with integrity, these practices create dynamic, engaging interactions that stand out from the flat, predictable exchanges that characterize most social interaction. The magnetic effect of mastered tension is undeniable. People remember interactions that had emotional charge. They forget interactions that were pleasant but uneventful. Creative tension makes you memorable. It creates the psychological equivalent of gravitational pull. Others find themselves thinking about you, wondering about you, wanting to understand you. This ongoing engagement is the foundation of lasting attraction. This law is forbidden because it creates individuals who cannot be controlled through social convention or emotional manipulation. They understand the hidden currents that flow beneath surface interaction and navigate them with mastery. In a culture that values comfort over intensity, the ability to work creatively with tension becomes revolutionary. We have reached the culmination of our journey through Nietzsche's forbidden laws of attraction. The previous laws have taken us through the foundations of power, the architecture of presence, and the dynamics of magnetic interaction. Now we arrive at the ultimate law, the principle that synthesizes all others into a single coherent way of being. This final law is not merely another technique or strategy. It represents the complete integration of Nietzsche's philosophy into your daily existence. It's where the transformation from seeking attraction to becoming attraction reaches its logical conclusion. Most people, even those who understand attraction dynamics, still operate from a place of subtle seeking. They want to be attractive, they want to command presence, they want to master interaction. The seventh law transcends this wanting entirely. It represents the final death of neediness and the birth of a mode of existence so complete in itself that attraction becomes not something you generate, but something you are. Law 7. Become the living embodiment of your values, the ultimate attraction. The seventh and final forbidden law represents the synthesis of all previous laws and the ultimate expression of Nietzsche's philosophy. Genuine, lasting attraction flows not from what you do, but from what you are at the most fundamental level of your being. This law commands you to stop trying to attract and start becoming so aligned with your deepest values that your very existence becomes magnetic. Most people's values are borrowed, inconsistent, or theoretical. They believe certain things are important, but don't structure their lives around these beliefs. The sovereign individual's values are lived, embodied, and non-negotiable. They don't just believe in courage, they act courageously. They don't just value truth, they speak truth regardless of consequences. They don't just admire excellence, they pursue it relentlessly in their chosen domain. This complete alignment between belief and action creates what psychologists call cognitive consistency, but what we might better call existential integrity. When you achieve this level of integration, something remarkable happens. You stop caring about whether others are attracted to you, and this very indifference becomes your most attractive quality. The practice begins with what I call values excavation, the ruthless process of identifying what you truly value beneath layers of social conditioning and borrowed beliefs. Most people can't articulate their core values beyond platitudes like honesty or kindness. The sovereign individual knows their values with surgical precision because they've paid for them with personal experience and conscious choice. Your values aren't what you think you should care about. They're what you can't help caring about, what you defend even at personal cost, what gives your life meaning when everything else is stripped away. The implementation requires what Nietzsche called self-overcoming, the continuous process of aligning your behavior with your stated values. This isn't a one-time achievement, but a moment-to-moment practice. Every decision becomes a values referendum. Does this action reflect who I choose to be? Does this choice honor what matters most to me? Does this behavior strengthen or weaken my integrity? This constant self-assessment creates what psychologists call internal consistency, the alignment between your beliefs, words, and actions that others detect at an intuitive level. The magnetic effect of lived values is profound and multi-layered. First, it creates trust. Others know exactly where you stand and what you represent. Second, it creates respect. People admire those who live by their principles, especially when it costs them something. Third, it creates inspiration. Your embodied values give others permission to live more authentically themselves. But the deepest attraction comes from what this alignment does to your own energy. When you're no longer compromising your values for approval or advantage, you stop leaking psychological energy in internal conflict. This conserved energy becomes palpable presence, what charisma researchers call expressed energy. Others experience you as more alive, more focused, more substantial. The advanced practice involves what I call values evolution, the conscious refinement of your values as you grow. Nietzsche understood that values aren't static. The Übermensch creates new values as an expression of their growing power. This means regularly questioning your own values, testing them against experience, and discarding those that no longer serve your evolution. The ultimate expression of this law is what Nietzsche called the transvaluation of all values, not just living by existing values, but creating new values that reflect your highest self. This creative aspect is perhaps the most attractive quality of all, because it positions you not as a follower of existing paradigms, but as a creator of new possibilities. When you reach this level, you become a psychological pioneer, and others are drawn to the new territory you're mapping. This final law is the ultimate forbidden knowledge because it creates individuals who cannot be manipulated through their values or compromised through social pressure. They become self-contained ethical universes, complete in themselves, who engage with others from abundance rather than need. In a world of conformity and compromise, the person who lives their values without apology becomes a magnetic force that rearranges the psychological landscape around them. This concludes our journey through Nietzsche's 7 forbidden laws of attraction. Remember, these aren't techniques to apply, but principles to embody. They work not because you use them on others, but because they transform you at the deepest level. The ultimate attraction comes not from seeking to be attractive, but from becoming so fully yourself that others can't look away.